Hey, it's a wonderful day. We are back here for another episode of That 90s Baseball Pod, and it's a fun one today. We've got a special guest. You know me as your host, Brandon Warren, at Brandon_WARNE, and as usual, I am flanked to my right or to my left, or however you see it on your YouTube screen or your podcast listening device, by former Orioles closer Gregg Olson at GREGGOLSON 30 on the Twitter machine. What's going on today, man?
Nothing. I'm just excited to have a former teammate on with us today.
Yeah, we got some fun stuff today. People might have figured it out if they're watching on YouTube who's on today, but if you're listening, we're not going to make you wait too much longer. Hopefully you're listening on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Libsyn, wherever you are. Give us a 5-star review. But let's not dance around the subject at hand. Our guest today, you may remember him from a fairly long time with the Orioles or a brief time with the Milwaukee Brewers. It's Ben McDonald, right-hander out of LSU, number 1 overall in 1989. Mr. McDonald, first of all, thank you for coming on the program.
My pleasure, guys. Good to see you. Good to be with you. Of course, nice to meet you and see an old buddy, an old teammate of mine, old Gregg Olson, too. So looking forward to it.
And I'm hopeful I can just – no, sorry, I didn't mean to jump on either. I'm hopeful I can just play a fly on the wall here because – I love listening to baseball guys tell baseball stories, and hopefully I can just kind of be the Ricky Rubio to your Kevin Love and Karl Anthony Towns, where you guys can be the stars and I'll just be the facilitator. But we do have to do some housekeeping. First of all, Greg, so we talked about hats last week. I'm wearing the black Access Twins one. I think you got a black one too, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got gray for Access Twins, and we got gray for That 90s Baseball Pod. If anybody's interested in those, hook up with me on Twitter, and we will get you figured out. It's $20 that's shipped. Or if you are a Patreon customer, we call you our patron. Patreon.com/That 90s Baseball Pod at a bunch of different levels. Hats are on a couple of those too. E-Pare, one of our sponsors. I got my mug today. Finally remembered to have the cup of Joe in there, but EPARE, promo code 10T90BP10 for 10% off your order. Symbol.app is the stock market for sports. Use the promo code BENDER, like a curveball, for a week free of Symbol Gold. Hinterland Coffee, which we're drinking today, hinterlandmn.com, 10% off a monthly subscription. 3-star sports cards in the Twin Cities here, or 3starsportscards.com. And finally, we've got the humility chain that I'm wearing today is a white one. Kind of getting a little echo here. Hopefully people aren't hearing that as well. But yeah, Royce Lewis's mom makes these. So humility chains on Etsy for Nigu, helping children fight cancer. All that aside, I'm really happy and excited to get into today's episode. First of all, Ben, we know Gregg's been keeping busy with some Orioles TV stuff and some Little League World Series. What keeps you busy nowadays, with your big league career in your rearview mirror?
Well, I kind of do the same thing Gregg does. Busy during the college season, doing SEC network stuff. And then, I'll do some digital stuff at LSU early in February, just kind of catching up with the local team 20 minutes down the road and kind of getting a feel for what I'm doing again. And then this was the first year I actually transitioned into doing pro ball while the college season was going on. So it's been steady for me. I was just telling Gregg before we went on, I'm going back to Baltimore one more time. I have 9 more games to do, but it's going to be a total of about almost 140 games this year between college and pro ball. And that all started in mid-February. So to say the least, I am looking forward to ending the season and getting some time away from the game of baseball. Although I love the game of baseball, you got to push back from it occasionally. So it's been a long year, but looking forward to the off season for sure.
For sure. Gregg and
Ben. Guys, no, I was going to say, if you haven't got a chance to follow Ben on Twitter, very entertaining. I saw it was the rattlesnake yesterday or 2 days ago.
Yeah, man, I was up at the farm. I came home. I had 6 days off, so I ran up there, tried to get some stuff done, get ready for hunting season. And, of course, the snakes are out this time of year, and I was cleaning up after the hurricane up there and pulling some limbs out of the way and pulled a big old limb off of one of my trails. And underneath it was this giant of a rattlesnake. Scared the you-know-what out of me. Thank God he didn't get me. He didn't strike at me. He was all coiled up. And so, I put it on Twitter and social media. But he was a big one, man. I don't miss the sound of that in the woods. If you go to it and listen to it, if you ever hear that sound in the woods, you're in the wrong spot. I'm just going to tell you, because he was rattling pretty good.
Well, for us here in Minnesota, I think that's the howl of a timber wolf, which Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, well,
I think that's kind of similar, probably not exactly the same, but I dropped the ball here at real Ben McDonald on Twitter. People got to follow you on there. I did see too, you got a bell sent to you in the mail from a Mississippi State fan. I do have a friend.
I did. Go ahead.
I have a friend, Johnny Watson, whose wife works at 3 Star Sports Cards, one of our sponsors, and he is a huge Mississippi State fan. Loves Brent Rooker with the Twins and all these guys. So he's going to love to hear this side. He's going to love to hear this story.
Yeah. I'm a big Mississippi State fan too. I mean, coming out of high school, of course, living 20 minutes from LSU, I was recruited hard, obviously, by LSU. And I really narrowed all my choices down to Mississippi State, LSU, and Texas. I love the University of Texas for whatever reason at the time. They had a cool basketball, baseball program, and Mississippi State with Ron Polk at the time. And Greg knows this. I mean, they were the team in the SEC in the mid '80s. It was Clark and Palomero, Thigpen and Brantley, and of course Ron Polk, and they really put SEC baseball on the map. So I considered Mississippi State hard coming out of high school. Even took a visit over there, stayed a weekend, but then some guy by the name of Skip Bertman took over at LSU, and like his second year there, LSU goes to the College World Series for the first time. That was my senior year in high school. So I go, okay, this Bertman guy might be on to something. Maybe he'll be pretty good at what he's doing at LSU. So I ended up going to LSU, and Skip ended up being pretty good, obviously, with 5 national titles. But Mississippi State had been a long time coming, and they win their first national title. So about a month ago, I got a random box in the mail. It didn't have an address on it, which was strange. The only thing it said came from the university, somewhere around the University of Starkville. Just opened it up, and it's had a card that said Hail State, and it was the championship bell that I have. I got it on my shelf over there, So it was good to see them win. Look, and Greg knows this. It's been a long time coming, and they probably should have won one along the way, maybe with Will and Palomero and all those guys, and they didn't. And so good for them. I'm happy for their program. I mean, because here's the significance of it. It's the first national championship in any sport at Mississippi State. And that's why it's so significant, because I think everybody that's ever put on a state uniform in any sport can appreciate and loves this championship, along with all the fans that's ever attended any Mississippi State event. When you win your first one in any sport, it's a special one. So good for them. I mean, it's one of the top programs in the country, and I've always been a big State fan, and it's always fun when LSU plays Mississippi State.
Good stuff. Yeah, no, Mississippi State was I took my recruiting trip, so I'm a year older than you. So I took my recruiting trip to State and Auburn. I did Arkansas, Tennessee, and Arizona. And when I went to State, Will Clark took me out. And I'm sitting there looking around the room going, okay, this is the best team in the country, but all you guys are leaving.
Right.
I was like, so what's going to happen next year in the next couple of years?
Right.
And I was kind of looking around the room going, I don't know if they're going to be very good for a little while. So I went to Auburn, and but it's funny to hear that you did the same thing, where you looked at Mississippi State going, man, that's a class of the SEC.
Yeah.
I got to at least take a look.
Sure. I mean, look, I was like you, and you always want to play at the best program, and I really wanted to stay in the SEC, although the SEC wasn't really considered a baseball conference then. It was more still football conference, with Mississippi State kind of putting it on the map, and then all of a sudden Skip Bertman comes along in my time, and we start going to a few, World Series along the way, and then other teams get involved. Of course, it's built to what it is today, which is, the #1 baseball program or conference in the entire country. It's big time college baseball now at its best, and it's it's fun to watch. But I'm just happy for Mississippi State, and I feel like Ron Polk had a lot to do with this one. I know you love Coach Polk too, and Coach Polk was part of our Olympic team in '88. He was one of the coaches on it with Bertman, and Mark Marcus was the was the head coach of that team. And so it was good to see Ron Polk. Of course, Ron Polk, as you know, is back in some capacity working for the university as well over at Mississippi State, which is nice. So good for them. Good for John Cohen, who we played against too, who's the athletic director. And so I'm happy for him in a lot of ways. Now we just got to get Ole Miss one, maybe get Auburn one, and we just keep clicking along the way.
Amen to that.
Well, I guys, I feel a little overmatched because of your guys' broadcasting chops, but I do want to ask, and hopefully it's not too far off the topic, but how hard has it been to broadcast off-site compared to on-site with the different events that you've done? Because, you've done college stuff and Gregg has done Little League stuff. I guess that means Gregg's got to get on your level, but I'm kidding. You bet. If I can't bust your chops, what am I doing here? But I feel like, there's got to have been at least a moderate adjustment period or a certain level of difficulty that you still feel today.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, you can get used to anything. We know that. And I'm sitting in my office right now where I have a camera behind me and a light and a monitor here. And this is how we called college baseball this year, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
This was it. And I think most everybody has one. And it works. It's nothing like being at the ball game as an announcer. We feed off the enthusiasm of the crowd. We can see what's going on. When I'm watching on the monitor, like I'm sitting here in my living room, you can't always see a ball that gets down the line. I can't tell if the runner at second base got a good jump on a base hit to right field, and that's the reason why he got thrown out of home plate, or that's the reason why he was safe at home plate. There's a lot of things that I can't see. Doing Orioles stuff and doing 81 games on TV with them, it's different there because I get to go to Baltimore, and when the game's at home, we call it like a regular game. I can see everything, but we're not traveling with the team. So when the team goes on the road, we just turn around in the booth and we just call it off a monitor like I'm calling it right here. And so it works. It's not ideal, I guess you could say, because there's some things that you just miss if you miss being at the ballpark. And I think the enthusiasm and feeding off the crowd is probably one of those biggest things, whether it's a home crowd or an away crowd, you kind of feed off that as an announcer. So there's challenges for me for doing it. But at the end of the day, I get it. It was about COVID last year, and, who knows what the future holds. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm hearing rumor that this may be the future of college baseball, unfortunately. Now, we did get to go to the College World Series. We did get to go to the SEC tournament and call those things in college ball live, but there was no regionals. There was no super regionals for us, although the girls got to go to a super regional. So I didn't quite understand that, but it is what it is. On the softball side, I guess it's two different people making decisions between softball and baseball. But who knows what the future is? And this could be the future of college baseball and college softball. I hope it's not, because I think the product is just better when the announcers are there. But, we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Totally agree. I thought the hardest thing for me was to know when my partner was going to start talking. I felt like we were tripping over each other. I did the Texas regionals and got a little help from a couple former teammates. I'm going to see if this thing will spin around, but it will. So there's my pile of ESPN gear waiting on all the next gigs. So, they told me to hang on to it. I did the Field of Dreams thing on radio, and it felt like I was tripping all over Roxy Bernstein the whole game. It was awkward.
It's a challenge, because there's a little bit of a delay. And when we're sitting in the booth together, I could reach over and tap you, and that I'm fixing to talk and I'm fixing to handle this replay or whatever. We couldn't talk to each other. And so I remember doing a super regional here. I was with Clay Mavick, and the game was going on in Nashville. Clay was in Minnesota. I was in Louisiana, and the producers were in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's just a train wreck. It's just a train wreck waiting to happen, But look, we pulled it off, and it is what it is. And the truth is, the majority of the fans, I don't think even knew or don't know a lot of times that we're not at the ballpark. But there's no way you'll ever convince me that the talent being at the facility, at the event, does not make the broadcast better. And so I think these networks are going to have something to weigh. They're going to weigh, okay, is it worth, we think it being a little bit better versus us saving a little bit of money, or, where is that going to be in there, So we'll have to wait and see how it all pans out. I'm hoping, obviously COVID begins to go away at some point and we can kind of get back on the road, calling games on the road where we should be.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the hope for even me as a fan. Is I know how much pride broadcasters take in their craft, and I'm friends with a lot of the guys who do the Twin stuff, whether it's Dick Bramer on TV or Corey Provis on radio, and they talk about how difficult it is to do their job remotely. They're not. It's not that they're not gracious for the job they have. It's they want to do the best job they can, and the resources just aren't there right now. So Ben,
yeah, it's hard to compare.
Yeah, well, let's lay some groundwork. You grew up in Louisiana and were drafted by the Braves out of high school, but I want to go back a little further than that into what was your immersion into baseball like? Because I have to assume you were a pretty big kid, so the idea that you were going to be an athlete was probably in place pretty early.
Yeah, I was like a lot of kids. We whatever the season was, we played the sport, and I had a bunch of buddies, and I live in a suburb and grew up in a suburb of Baton Rouge, about 12 miles east of Baton Rouge, and one high school, 2 junior highs, and 3 elementary schools in our hometown. But all the buddies I grew up with, when it was football season, we played football. And then it was basketball season, we played basketball. And then when it was baseball season, we played baseball. And that's just what we did. And I even played a year on the golf team, tried all kind of different things. I just loved to play. I was athletic, and no matter what sport it was, I wanted to play it. And so that's kind of what we did, and I grew up loving all 3 sports, and football, baseball, and basketball, and excelled in all of them. I was a bigger kid, rather skinny, but a taller kid. And so, but one sport helped me to another. Now, basketball really helped my coordination, my agility. I think that helped in a baseball sense. It helped me being mechanically sound at 6'7" and being really tall. Mechanics can get out of whack pretty quick, but my coordination on the basketball court helped me in that avenue. I also thought football helped with toughness. You get your butt knocked off a few times, you figure out who you are. You get punched in the mouth a few times, well, you figure out who you are. You learn how to punch back. And so I think all those things taught me and rounded me into an athlete, and a tougher athlete, if you will. And it helped me in my baseball career. Now, the truth is I love basketball, and basketball was my favorite sport growing up. And I actually went to college. Not many people know this, but I actually was more heavily recruited out of high school to play basketball than I was baseball. And I had over 100 Division I offers to play basketball all around the country. And I loved the game of basketball. And finally, I went to LSU because Dale Brown was there and Skip Bertman was there, and the basketball program was established. But I quickly realized when I got to basketball and started playing at LSU that the boys on the court could dribble it up the court faster than I could run. And I said, you know what? Basketball just might not be for me because they're pretty good. And plus, I went off the summer ball after my freshman year at LSU, and I went and played in the Alaskan Summer League. And I got up to 98 miles an hour after my freshman year, and I kind of knew, okay, baseball's probably going to be my ticket to make it to the next level or make it to the professional level, And so I went back and played a little bit more basketball my sophomore year until baseball season started. And like they said, the rest is history after that.
Well, was there ever any chance you were going to sign with the Braves, or was that just a, hey, thanks for that, but we're going to go in another direction?
I didn't want to sign. And here's a funny story behind that. So I was 18 years old, man. I wanted to go to LSU and play basketball and baseball. I did not want to be off on my own for the first time going to play pro ball. And the Braves, Bobby Cox was the GM of the Braves at the time, and they drafted me late. Because I told them before, I told everybody, look, I'm going to LSU. Seriously, this is no negotiation. I want to go to LSU and play basketball and baseball. Well, they drafted me late in the, 20-something round, and they called, and all of a sudden the money numbers started going up. Like they got to $75,000, which at the time was second round money. And if you got $100,000, that was back in first round money at the time. And I remember my dad said, boy, if they get to $100,000, you sign. I was like, no, Daddy, I don't want to sign. I don't want to go play pro ball. I want to go to LSU. I grew up going to LSU football games. I grew up going to LSU basketball camps. I grew up sneaking in Alex Box Stadium in a hole out in right field wall. As a kid, I'd sneak through, wouldn't pay because I didn't have the money to get in. And I'd watch LSU play baseball when I was in junior high with some buddies of mine. I didn't want to play pro ball. Thank God they never got to $100,000, or my dad probably would have made me sign, And so it all worked out, and got to go to college for 3 years, got to play on an Olympic team, and was drafted 3 years later.
How did you sneak anywhere at your size?
Well, in junior high, I was only about 6'1", so I wasn't quite
okay.
as tall as I am right now. So they had a hole out in right field at Alex Box, and Gregg's been there. The old box is not there anymore. It's a parking lot for football games now on campus, and so I could always sneak in the back and walk along where the bullpens were and get into the ballpark without paying.
You are the exact opposite of probably every high school baseball player in the country. I wanting to go to college, not wanting to sign. I mean, I remember, it was kind of the same thing. I didn't get drafted out of high school, but teams came in because they knew that I was going to college because of my parents. And it was kind of comical because I'm like going, but I want to go. And my dad's going, okay, if you get to 100,000, we'll let you go. And never got to that number, but it was kind of about the same as you. And it's just funny hearing you go, but Dad, I want to go to college.
Yeah. Yeah, and it wasn't. I didn't want to go for the schooling. I wanted to go play sports at LSU. I mean, I grew up. I tried to convince them. Look, can I just go to LSU and just play sports? I really have to go to class. It's like, no, Ben, you got to go to class too. I was like, damn it. But I just grew up a fan of LSU. I grew up right here. I mean, I'm literally 15 miles from the ballpark here. And my mom and dad had season tickets growing up to basketball and football, and so I always wanted to wear the purple and gold, man. I was a fan of Billy Cannon when I was a kid, and when he ran that punt back on Halloween night, and it just I don't know, it still gives me goosebumps today. So I always wanted to put the purple and gold on.
Nice.
So you win the 27th round. It's actually kind of funny. There's some parallelism there with you were picked. Oh, they don't have the numbers here. Oh no, they do. You were picked 670. Pick 682 actually beat you to the major leagues and was in the same draft as you the next time around. Do you remember who that was? Of course you do.
Don Olerud. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
He went to the Mets, foreshadowing there as he ended up playing with the Mets towards the end of his career. But they took him out of Interlake High School in Bellevue back in the day. And then obviously the rest is history as far as him going to college. And if I'm not mistaken, skipped minor league ball altogether.
Yes, he did. Yeah, I think Olerud went straight up in '89. He was in my draft, and I think I spent 10 days in the minor leagues and got called up, and I think he went straight into the big league level. That's right.
Yeah, I think Abbott went to spring training and came straight out and made it to the major league after doing the Olympics with you.
That's right. Abby did that too, and it's not been many guys that have done that in recent years. It seems to be rare and rare. Although there's some talent, I think they could do it. I just don't think they're going that. We've gotten so much caught up in starting the clocks now. And these GMs with these teams, they're looking at it. Although the basic agreement, is up this year, so we could have some new stuff out there. But as of right now, they don't want to start the clock, so they want to give them service time until. They can push them back so they're not 2+ players and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's a lot of that going on now. Whereas if you get drafted by a team that can really win right now, you could see some kids come up really quick and potentially help in September, and do some things like that.
Yeah.
I think Mike.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Well, I think Mike Leake skipped the minors. Otherwise, you're talking about guys like Chris Sale, Brandon Finnegan, who played very little time in the big leagues.
Yeah.
But if we're gonna do a minor league, yep, exactly. If we're gonna do a minor league episode, probably not gonna have either of you guys on here because you don't have much to say other than maybe later in your career or rehabs, because you guys spent a combined maybe half an hour in the minor leagues, which is pretty awesome.
I think the best one still might be Clyde Wright coming out of high school and going straight to the big leagues with Texas in like 1970.
Yeah. I remember that name.
And then went to prom after.
Right, exactly. Go to the big leagues, to go to prom. I'll hit graduation after the World Series, whatever.
So when we started this show, we talked about Gregg's time at Auburn and obviously playing with Bo Jackson and Big Frank Thomas. You had some pretty awesome teammates at LSU too. Albert Bell obviously comes to mind. And you played with his brother Terry too, I see.
Sure did.
There was actually a podcast, and I hate to bring it up, but it's called Crime in Sports, where they had an episode on Albert. So I learned a lot more about Albert than I knew as a kid that I didn't know back then, as far as trick or treating and that sort of thing. But back in those days, I think he was Joey, or maybe he was between names. But I mean, so the year you spent with him, he had a 1,200 OPS. Was he just absolutely terrifying at the plate? I mean, in the big leagues, he obviously was. But I mean, this is a grown ass man, pardon the familiarity, with an aluminum bat in his hands. Yeah. That's got to be terrifying.
You best described him. He was a grown ass man with kids. I played with and against a lot of people from college up through the big leagues, and he still, to me, is the most terrifying hitter that I can ever remember. And I faced some good ones, including Frank Thomas and Bo Jackson and all of them that you want to name. But Albert, Joey, Jobert, whatever you want to call him, was a bad man, I'm going to tell you. And he turned down a football scholarship to Notre Dame to play baseball at LSU. That's what kind of athlete he was. And I'm going to tell you something else that not many people know about him too. Valedictorian of his senior class in high school.
Wow.
Straight A student. Went to every class at LSU, never missed a class. Was an honor student at LSU, never missed a class. One day I was with him. Got up every morning, went to class. A good dude off the field. When he crossed the white lines, he turned into a different dude. It was uncontrollable at times. But as far as a talent goes, I don't know that I've seen a talent like that in a long time. And let's be honest about this. I think he had 386 home runs in his career when his hip went out on him. At the rate he was hitting home runs, you give Albert Bell another 3 years in the big leagues, maybe 3.5 years, healthy years, he's a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer all day long. That's what kind of talent he was. And he could run, he could throw, and certainly he could hit, And so, good dude. I hate what happened to him. He's obviously got some issues, and he had those issues at LSU. And I'll be honest with you, and Gregg knows this, LSU probably wins the College World Series my freshman year. Two things happened. Our very best pitcher, Mark Guthrie, got hurt right at the end of the year, who ended up pitching about 50 years in the big leagues. Albert Bell, because of his issues, Skip Bertman finally kicked him off the team. So we lose our best pitcher, and we lose our best hitter as we go to the College World Series my freshman year, which was Guthrie's senior year and Bell's junior year. If we had those two guys, we probably win the College World Series, And so it was disappointing in a lot of ways, but to see him go over the fence at the SEC tournament, I was pitching that game, and I remember there was a guy heckling him out in the outfield, calling him the worst names you can imagine. And I hear time, and I step off the mound, and I see Bell go over the right field fence. Like in the middle of the game, he jumps over the right field fence and goes after this guy in the middle of the game. And that was kind of the last straw. And that's what got him kicked off the team, And so it's sad in some ways, but, it is what it is.
Yeah, he was every bit of Frank Thomas, for us. And I played with him actually in '84 on the junior Olympic team.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And the dude was a dude, and it was funny. You said it exactly right. He crossed the white line, and there was a switch that was flipped, and he was just a different animal than he was in the clubhouse, walking down the street. It was just a different animal.
Very intelligent guy, very intelligent. And, he really played the game of baseball with a football mentality. That's what he was. He was a football player playing the game of baseball. And that's what he really probably should have done, although he was pretty good at baseball. But, you remember him in Baltimore when he got hit by the pitch and didn't want to take his base. I'd already left Baltimore. I think you were gone too. But he got hit by a ball in the middle of a game and didn't want to take the base. He argued with the umpire. He wanted to stay there and hit. That's the kind of guy he was, He got off the hook a little bit, But you'd like to have him on your team because like he wasn't ever giving away anything. Like if he got 600 at bats in a season, he was out for blood for 600 at bats.
Yes.
Like, he wasn't giving away nothing. So I like to have him on my team. I love to have him on my team because he was that kind of competitor. Now, he would get off the rails a little bit and cause some issues from time to time because who knows? He might have been mentally unstable. Who knows? But that son gun could compete, man. He could compete with the best of them.
It's funny. He is, we talk about how the game is and you can't slide into second base now. You can't wipe out a catcher and how the game's completely changed. And all I want to do is go, all right, check out a video of Albert Bell running over Fernando Vina at second base. And I was like, that for some reason, that started the discussion of, well, if he's in the baseline, it's just like a catcher and you can run him over, right? And so every team started having this conversation in spring training about, well, if you're going to run into a tag at second base, you might as well do what Albert did. And so it became kind of a league wide. Every second baseman came into the baseline and was like, oh crap, yeah. I might get Albert,
right?
And so that whole tagging the guy for the easy double play just stopped.
Yeah, no, that ended all that, and that's why you always got to be prepared because, and I played with Fernando, and Fernando's a little bitty dude, and I remember seeing him like, dude, what the hell were you thinking? He said, man, I forgot who was running. I said, clearly you forgot who was running, and he's like, I'll never make that mistake again because I remember the first thing hit the ground was the back of his head, it was like,
yeah.
But Bell at the time was, at that time, it was probably 6'3", 240, and it wasn't no fat on him. Like, he was put together from the beginning, and so it is what it is. That's how he played the game, though. Like, he was going to get you. Like, if he was angry, that game about whatever, he might have punched out twice. He was going to get somebody if he could. That's just the way he played the game, so you had to be on your toes with him.
Yeah, but, I mean, the other piece of that, he wipes out Vina, and then he picks up his helmet and goes to the dugout. Doesn't look at him, doesn't stand over him, doesn't do anything that you see in a college football game with a little bit of, I just ran over you. It was, I got to get my helmet and I'm out. So I'm just going to go walking across the field. It was, perfect.
It's like I have taken out my aggression. I taught you a lesson. Don't be in the baseline. I'm happy with all that. Now I'm going to take my helmet and go back to the dugout and get a cup of water. That was just him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vina almost became the first on-field fatality in 70 years there. That was really something. Yeah, I'm glad you answered the part about you answered before I could ask about if you want to be a teammate with that guy. Yeah, football seems like it'd be more his speed. I don't think I'd want to be a tight end or wide receiver coming across the field. He strikes me as a middle linebacker kind of guy without those smarts and that aggression, but also kind of playing with like one screw completely unscrewed and the rest of them a little bit loose.
Yeah, no, there were some screws loose in that skull. I'm just going to tell you. But as a teammate, I liked it. But you knew in the clubhouse, like I was a joker, and Gregg will tell you that. Like I like to mess with some people in the dugout or in the clubhouse for whatever reason. And sometimes in the dugout when I wasn't pitching, I'd pull pranks all the time. He was one of those dudes like you just wasn't going to mess with because you never knew. He may laugh and think it's funny, but on the other hand, if you caught him on a bad day, he may tie you in a knot, and so it just, you just didn't know. So he's just one of those guys I just kind of left alone. I didn't mess with him a whole lot.
Well, you could have been the other fatality. So that would have been,
exactly.
Would not have been great. You also played with Guthrie, a guy I'm familiar with as growing up a Twins fan. And then, like you said, lefties pitch. You'd almost think Gregg was a lefty for how long he hung around too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that staff that you guys had at LSU, I was just kind of running through. You had Springer, you had Manuel, you had Guthrie, you had you. Maybe, other than you, the next best guy that I don't think he made it was Kite.
Yeah, Dan Kite. And, if our left-hander, Greg Patterson, doesn't get hurt, I think Patty had a real shot of making it to the big leagues, And, but, I mean, in our time at LSU, we won on pitching and defense. We were pitching. Even my junior year, we had me, Springer, Paul Bird, Chad Auger, Kurt Liskanek, at least 5 big leaguers on a pitching staff, We had Keith Osick, who played 10 years in the big leagues. And so it wasn't until after I was gone that Gorilla Ball got introduced, and they started winning games by out slugging everybody. But it was all about pitching and defense because that was Bertman's specialty when he first, left Miami. He was the pitching coach, and when he got to LSU, he wanted to build a program around pitching and defense, and it worked. And it got us to some College World Series, but at the end of the time, we couldn't win them. We just didn't really have enough offense at the time, and then the offense would start to come later on. So, we had some very talented players, and Skip could always recruit at LSU. So it's a good time. We were the kind of the stepping stones of what would come in 6 national titles. We kind of helped put LSU on the map and talk about the Andy Galleys of the world and Greg Pattersons and Pete Bushes and Albert Bells and Jim Bowie's of the world, all those guys, Jeff Yurton, you remember Reveille and Yurton and all those guys. Those are the guys that first put LSU on the map, and nobody knew what would come after that. Nobody had any idea that there would be 5 national titles in a 10-year span from Bertman, but it was cool to kind of watch it go from absolutely nothing to, where it is today.
It's funny, you talk about all those guys, and I keep thinking of Michael Papajohn out in center field for you guys for I think 2 years, and then he plays Tuttle on For the Love of the Game as the Yankees 3-hole hitter, and I was like, oh man, he's never seen a 3-hole in his life.
Never. Funny story with Papajohn. I don't know how many, and I still stay in touch, but he's been in over 100 movies, little bits and pieces. Spider-Mans and Terminators and all
Predator.
those. He's got parts. He's got parts in all those. But he was his senior year at LSU, and they were filming on the football field. He was still playing baseball, but they were filming on the football. What was it called? It was really about Billy Cannon.
Everybody's All-American.
That's it. And so Papajohn, they were like, hey man, he comes in the clubhouse. Papajohn's always jumping up, and he goes, hey dude, look, they're paying $100 for extras to go out on the football field and put some uniforms on and just get clobbered, just get hit. I was like, okay. And he goes, I think I'm gonna go do it. I was like, you are out of your mind. I was like, they're gonna just train wreck you out there. And sure enough, he showed up the next day. I mean, he got out, his helmet was on like this when he would get up. Like they were hitting him so hard, his helmet was on sideways. He showed up the next day, he was just one big bruise. Like they just beat him to nothing because he was on all those big hard hit scenes, but he kept going back. They kept paying him $100 a day. He was loving it. And he's like, man, this is what I want. That's how he got his start in Hollywood. Really, he's kind of like doing the stuntman thing and being the guy that got beat up all the time. And now, of course, it's evolved into some speaking parts, a lot of speaking parts and doing other things. So good for him. He's having a good time doing it.
Yeah, no, I've talked to him every once in a while, but so you guys listening to this, you remember Tuttle, the 3-hole hitter for the Yankees, is Michael Papajohn. Also, he goes by Papajohn in the movie, not Waterboy. God, what's a football movie?
He was in Waterboy too. I can't remember what part he was in Waterboy, but he was in Waterboy too. He was in that one. I remember that one.
No, but the Sandler remake of the Burt Reynolds.
Wow. Longest Yard.
Yard, yeah.
Yeah, he was actually Papajohn in Longest Yard guarding the 6'8" inmate.
Yeah, he was one of the security guards, wasn't he?
He ran a kickback.
Wow.
So he was
the best man.
He was Tucker Kane in Little Big League too. I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's one that's real close to
my first year.
That was Ben's center fielder.
That was my center fielder, yeah. I remember in 1990, right after that, he was out in L.A. trying to make it, and my phone rang at the hotel. We didn't have cell phones then, and it was Papajohn. He was out in L.A. He's like, dude, I got nowhere to stay. He's like, I'm out here trying to get a job in this acting world. I'm sleeping in my car. He said, can I come sleep on the floor of your hotel room? I was like, dude, we're in town for 3 days. I said, I'll change rooms. I got a double bed, 2 beds, change rooms, and he slept in my. And he's still so thankful for that day. He was sleeping in his car out in L.A. just trying to make it. So he had a bed to sleep in for 3 nights. So I was glad we were out there. Anyway, I got to catch up with him.
That's awesome.
So
all right, back to baseball.
Yeah, well, this question might go somewhere and it might not. There was an assistant coach there named Beetle Bailey while you were at LSU. I mean, there's got to be a story behind that name, doesn't there?
Beetle Bailey was my high school coach.
No kidding.
Here in Dedham Springs, and he was a tough son of a gun. and I grew up going to his baseball camps. He was like the athletic director of my high school right here. And the year before I went to LSU, he went to LSU as an assistant coach. Everybody says it was a package deal. I cannot
they
confirm.
do.
I cannot confirm nor deny that. The
I think
reason why he ended up at LSU.
I think you're out of the range of sanctions or anything, at least for the time being.
But I had nothing to do with it. I'm just going to say it like that. But anyway, of course, he's since passed away. Unfortunately, got cancer and died. But he was a big part of my life and a big part of, shaping me as a high school baseball player, and just a tough guy. I tell you, funny, Gregg's probably been there. One time as a sophomore in high school, ball hit to the right side. I didn't cover first base.
Uh-oh.
And guy was safe over there. And when I got back to the dugout, that's when they could put their hands on you. When I got back to the dugout, he grabbed me up by my my 6'5" at the time, 160-pound frame, and probably just picked me up like this. And he was only 5'7", so he actually pulled me down to his level. And when he got through chewing on me in front of everybody, God, the fans, and everybody that was there, I never, for the rest of my career, which would last another 12 years, every time a ball was even hit that way, I flinched and ran that way because of that man, And so you learn, there's always one instance in your career that you remember a lot. And he taught me right away, and I never forgot to cover first base after that. I did it 100 times after that probably, but it's just one of those things, like, you just don't forget an ass chewing like that. You just don't forget it.
That's great.
Well, I feel like you can't be called Beetle Bailey and be a well-mannered church choir boy. So you got to be kind of.
And I'll be honest with you. He was Beetle Bailey long before I knew him. And honestly, I don't know how he got that nickname, but when I was like in grade school, he was called Beetle Bailey, and I still don't know why. I was scared to ask him how he got the name, to be honest.
That's probably fair. When did you and Gregg become aware of each other? Because you had a little bit of overlap. But I mean, this wasn't the era where there was television for a lot of these things, and Facebook, and just the awareness had to have probably been either beforehand or more organic from just playing in the same conference. How did you become aware of each other as players?
Well, I mean, in the SEC, who the best players are, and when you're going to play certain teams, I knew that Frank Thomas and Gregg Olson was at Auburn, and you hear across the league where the better players are. We knew down in Georgia there was 2 first-rounders, and Chris Carpenter and Derek Lilliquist. Like, I knew those dudes were down there. I wanted to be like one of those guys were older than me, and Gregg was 1 year in front of me. And so I remember Auburn came to, and I remember Gregg had been on some USA teams and that kind of stuff, which at the time, was a really big deal back then. Back then, if you were on a USA team or an Olympic team, that was a big deal. Now it's just like there's USA everything now. Like, there's a billion kids playing USA ball right now, so you don't know who's who. But anyway, I knew Gregg was on one of those teams, so I remember they came to Baton Rouge. And if I'm not mistaken, Gregg, I know he remembers, I think Auburn swept us at home. Gregg might have had 2 saves and a win, or 2 wins and a save coming out of the bullpen all 3 games, and it's like, I knew at the time, I was like, Jesus, when he came in the game, I was like, all right, he got that hook and throwing the fastball hard. I'm like, we got no shot, because we couldn't hit then anyway. When he came in the game, shit was over. Like, it was over. And so that's when I first got word of Gregg, and of course, Frank Thomas was with aluminum bat. I mean, you knew about him too, 6'5", 260, and with them hot bats, like those Bam Bam bats that they swung back then, it was like, it was a scary situation, so you just knew around the league, where the stars were.
Oh, we got, you came to our place. It was your freshman year, and you came to our place, and your first base coach, Smoke
Lavelle.
Yep. Smoke Lavelle. And I'm sitting in the dugout like I always do. And then he kind of looks over in the dugout and looks at me, goes, "This guy's as good as you are." And it was, you hadn't thrown a pitch yet. And I'm just kind of going, all right. And you came out I don't remember what the outcome was, but it was like I'm sitting in the dugout going, damn. All right, that's good shit right there.
Yeah. I kind of, everybody forgets I didn't get out to base my freshman year. I didn't get out to base. See, we went all the way to the Elite Eight my freshman year in basketball. So by the time I even stepped foot on the baseball field, we were already in conference play. And so I never even got the pre-SEC schedule. And then it took me a little time to get my legs obviously were in great shape because of basketball, but then it took me a little time to kind of get my feet under me, my arm strength going. So I really wasn't even a factor on the baseball team my freshman year, other than I came out of the bullpen and had some relief, maybe one midweek start or something, And it wasn't until really summertime in Alaska that I really started to reach my peak. And that was one reason why I quit playing basketball. I told Dale was I need to be out there for a full year to show everybody what I can do, and I really wanted to make that. I knew the Olympic team was coming up and that summer, and I really wanted to play there. And I knew if I played half a year of baseball, heck, I might not do good enough to make the team. So that was one of the big reasons why I gave up basketball, was to put a full year in to try to make the Olympic team.
Dude, you were a no-brainer for that team. I tell the story. Abbott was my roommate the year before on the Pan Am team. And he spent half the summer telling me he's getting cut. And I'm looking at him going, you're the Golden Spikes Award winner. I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, dude, I'm the worst pitcher here. I'm getting cut. And now I'm hearing you going, I'm trying to make the Olympic team. I'm looking at you go, dude, you were one of the best players there. What are you talking about?
Well, and I think everybody can relate to this. So I only played half my freshman year. I go to Alaska that summer, and I kind of came into my own in some ways. The velocity really ticked up. I could always throw strikes. And so I'm going back for my first year of full college at LSU to try to be a starter. And I started for the first time. And so, but I knew I had to have a good year. And I had an All-American season. But then when you get invited to where the best, I think 40 players in the country are, you still don't know how good you are. And I think every level we go up, whether it's from high school to college, A ball to double A to the big leagues, you start to wonder if you belong a little bit. And remember, I was a year younger than you guys. And so Andy Bennett was the first pick in the country. Jim Abbott was like the fourth pick in the country. And I'm an underclassman going back to school, and all you guys are going to play pro ball, and so then you start to wonder, all right, do I belong in this group? And am I good enough? But then you start to stack your skills against the guys that are there. And once I got there for about 3 weeks, and I roomed with Andy Bennis, and Andy, I started thinking, okay, well, my fastball is as good or better than Andy Bennis's fastball. I'm saying this to myself, and then I go, my breaking ball is definitely better than Andy Bennis's, and I got a fork ball that's pretty good too, and he don't have one of those. And so then I started saying, well, okay, well, maybe I do belong at this level. Maybe I am, because until you can stack your talent up against the other guys that are there, you don't really know, and that's when I really believed at that point that I had a real shot of playing in the major leagues. I had a real shot of being the first pick in the country the following year, because I had a chance to stack my talents against Robin Ventura and pitch against him and some of the great players that was on that team. And you start to get confidence and know that, okay, I can compete at this level.
No, great point.
So you guys played Gregg with Frank Thomas and Ben with Albert Bell. Do you guys think, and I hope this isn't too much of off the path of where you guys are going, do you ever think of that White Sox team as a great what if when those two guys were together and it just never became much of anything? Because I mean, that's got to be a pitcher's worst nightmare. Obviously Cleveland was pretty stacked then, as Gregg can attest, both personally and then, both of you guys seeing from a distance. But I feel like those two guys together in the big leagues, if somebody would have told you that 10 years before, you'd have thought, goodness sakes, they're gonna sweep their way to the pennant.
Ben, I don't know. What years were they together?
Well, and it was kind of late too. I think it was 97. I'm gonna look it up because I'm trying to remember too.
Yeah, because I mean, Albert was the dominant piece of Cleveland. Then he went to the Orioles. I thought. I don't remember him being. Yeah,
97, 98, and then I think they tore it down. I think they tore it down halfway through that 98 year that everybody got so mad about. 80 and 81 in 87 or 97 under Terry Bevington. And then under Jerry Manuel the next year, 80, 82, and 1. I don't remember that tie, but whatever. Yeah, so they were a 500 ball club. And not only Frank Thomas and Albert Bell, but Robin Ventura could play. Ray Durham was coming into his own at that time. They had a young Mike Cameron. Boy, I tell you what, I think I have some of the old, Athlon sports magazines, and boy, they thought that was just going to be incredible, and it never really got there.
Yeah, I remember that team, and I want to say offensively they were okay. Like if I remember right, their pitching is what let them down a little bit in those years, and how it is in the big leagues. I mean, you stack up talent on one side of the ball, but your talent's got to be able to do it on both sides of the ball to be a winning team, And when we talk about lineups, people always ask, that's a great question. They say, what's the best lineup you ever faced? And I always say, well, there were two of them that jumped out. Obviously, the late 80s, early 90s lineup of the Oakland A's, and Greg knows them, but, McGuire and Ricky Henderson and Canseco and Steinbach and Corny Lansford and Gregg. I mean, they just had them all that were just a very tough lineup.
Oh, and Dave Henderson too.
Dave Henderson, and then the other lineup for me that was the scariest, it might have been the scariest of all, was the Cleveland Indians lineup of the mid 90s, and where you had Lofton leading off, and you had like Vizquel and Baerga and Albert Bell and Alomar, and then there was a couple of guys at the back end that were very young. Yeah, there was a couple of guys at the back end that were very young to hit like in the 6-7 hole or 7-8 hole. Some guy by the name of Tomei and Ramirez. And those were two arguably Hall of Famers, right? Well, Tomei's already there, but Ramirez, who knows if he gets in? But I mean, really, in that lineup, when you think about it, I mean, you're talking about, did Vizquel get in the Hall of Fame yet? Is he going to be in? But he could be in.
I believe. I believe though there's. I think he's in, but then there's some issues with his off-field stuff.
Oh yeah, that's right. But if you talk about Hall of Fame talent, what is there? There's Tomei, Ramirez, Vizquel, Bell. Who knows if Lofton? I don't know if Lofton has the numbers to get in, but there's at least 4 Hall of Fame talent in that one lineup is what was in it, And so that was a scary freaking lineup. I remember pitching 7-8 innings against those guys and giving up 5 runs and going, I had a pretty good outing today. I gave up 5 runs in 8 innings in Cleveland, That's pretty good outing. Oh, and don't forget they had Eddie Murray. Eddie Murray was in the middle of that. So that is 5 Hall of Fame talents in one lineup. Eddie Murray was in the middle of that lineup too. And so, it's like, I remember pitching going, I gave up 4. And that's a good day.
Winfield. They had Winfield on that team too.
For a minute.
They may have, but
No, in 95, they had Winfield.
He was, remember the story there? The Twins traded him right before the strike. We had a strike episode people should go back and check out. But for whatever reason, the trade couldn't be consummated, player to be named, whatever. So I believe the Cleveland officials bought the Minnesota officials dinner that night, and that was the official compensation for the Dave Winfield trade. Was probably a steak dinner.
That was not a player to be named later. That was a meal to be named later, is what the trade was.
Nice.
Exactly.
Well, I think I saw Terry Mulholland got traded for $1 one time, so I think I'd probably prefer to be a meal to be named later. That'd be a fun.
I got traded twice, and I swear one of them had to be for a case of beer.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well,
be right.
That's awesome.
Go.
Oh, I thought you were going to take off here on us for a minute.
No, I got a second. Time out.
No problem.
Keep going.
Well, Ben, I wanted to ask you the workload you had at LSU. That last year you threw 152 innings, and things have changed in terms of college workload, in terms of pro workload. They're more concerned with that. Does any part of you remember at the time or now thinking, hey, this might be too much? Or was it just kind of, this is where I want to be, this is what I got to do, and then we'll deal with what's next? Did you even think about it at all?
Yes and no. And I get asked this one a lot, as a competitor, and I was uber competitive. And coach says, can you give me an inning? Can you pitch? And the answer was always, you damn right, I'll figure it out. I'll figure out a way as a competitor. And that was some of my downfall. Like, I wasn't as smart as Mike Messina. I watched Mike Messina come off the mound. We were in Baltimore, and he would just come in from the field and give the manager one of these and walk straight to the clubhouse. Like, he would take himself out of games because he knew he was out of gas or he was hurting a little bit, and it was time to come out of the ball game. I wasn't that smart. Like, you couldn't get me out of a ball game. And as a competitor, you want to go pitch. And people ask me that all the time. You know, I threw 352 innings in 17 months in college. You go back to my sophomore year at LSU, straight to the Olympic team that summer where I threw 80 innings during the summertime, back to LSU my junior year that you mentioned for 150 innings. So it was 350 innings in 16 or 17 months. Looking back on it, yeah, it was suicide. And that's the reason why my shoulder gave out like it did. I was probably fortunate to get a 9-year career out of it. It was just too much throwing. And a lot of it at LSU was 5 different times I threw 9 on Saturday and closed on Sunday. I had 5 saves my junior year. I threw 150 pitches, and the next day I go close the ball game out. In high school, I pitched every pitch of a 13-inning game in the state semifinals, through 225 pitches, closed the next day for the state championship. So I did a lot of those kind of things. I think it got me where I eventually ended up being a competitor that I was, but there's no doubt that that's what did damage to my shoulder. And, I don't tell many people this, but I'm going to tell you guys. Skip Bertman came to me, and it's very emotional for me, but he came to me last year as he's getting older and said, I just want to apologize. And I said, Coach, apologize for what? He's like, I probably pitched you too much. And I said, Coach, that's water under the bridge. I said, it's nobody's fault. I always tell people I wasn't the only one doing it. You can go down to Kurt Dresseldorfer over in Texas. He was throwing the same innings I was throwing. We were a product of our times. People say, well, you were abused. And I say, no, I wasn't abused. I was a product of my time. If we knew then what we know now, of course, we would have taken better care of ourselves. But I always tell people, look at Steven Strasburg. Steven Strasburg, as a youth player, was coddled and watched and counted as much as you could be coddled, watched, and counted to take care of. He still blew out his elbow. Now, he's had a hell of a career. Obviously, didn't pitch this year because of corporal tunnel and whatever else he's got going on, but hell of a talent. But sometimes you do everything right, it can still end up wrong. But there's definitely no doubt that we know a lot more now about arm care. And look, it happened at the big league level too. Don't think it didn't happen then too, And I remember Johnny Oates. I was in Boston and I had thrown like 6 innings, and we had a 2.5-hour rain delay. This would have been like in '94 maybe. And Dick Bosman came to me 2 hours into it and goes, Johnny needs you to go back out. I was like, Bosman, I got 90 pitches, dude. I've thrown 6 innings. It's 2.5 hours since we've been on the field. Yeah, but the bullpen got beat up the last 2 days. We need you to go out and pitch. I was too dumb. I was like, okay, give me the ball. I'll go pitch. Got out there, warm up again. Andre Dawson hit one in the first inning at Fenway Park over the monster. This probably still hadn't freaking landed 30 years later. I gave up 3 runs, but I pitched 2 more innings to get them, save the bullpen a little bit. My arm stayed sore for the next month. Didn't take no time off, kept pitching, but the results weren't there. So if I could go back and do it over again, I probably would change a few things. I'd be a little bit smarter about taking myself out of ball games, but it just wasn't in my makeup. It wasn't in my DNA. It's not how I was raised. It's just like, yeah, you challenge me to do something, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna go get it done. And that's just the kind of person I was.
Well, and I think when people lament the lack of a Nolan Ryan in today's game, people don't realize too, and this is my theory. If you guys disagree, please let me know. In those days, and in the days pre-Tommy John, or even in early Tommy John before it was as effective as it was, pitching was almost like going to war. Once that elbow gave out, they just left you by the side of the road. They didn't give you a year to rehab and come back. It was, well, I guess he's done. And so the guys who could survive did. There were fewer teams back then, so there there wasn't the demand for 30 teams and 16 to 18 pitchers at any given time based on taxi squads and AAA guys who are close. So the demand on the populace of capable big league starters at any given time wasn't as big. I think that it was a product of the time, and I think too that that's just not required anymore. We're more aware of what can and can't work, and those guys still exist. Maybe Justin Verlander was the Nolan Ryan of this era, or Max Scherzer, but we just don't know because we don't have to have that barbaric pitch until you can't pitch anymore mentality, which has slowly drifted away from our consciousness at this time.
Well, I mean, Ben was a part of I came up with a 5-man bullpen, and when I was doing Orioles games last year, there were times they had a 10-man bullpen. It's just, it's a completely different world. And I think, guys, I told the story about, when the game kind of changed in about 90, 91, where the money started to get into the $3 million mark. And, all of a sudden it was hard to throw in because guys were so aware of, possibly getting hurt. And, now you look and I think management's so aware of the players and the salaries and the money that's being made that they're cautious for the players as much as the players are cautious. But, you and I talked, I blew out and walked in first time in my life, walked into Johnny Oates's office and said, man, I need a couple of days off. I'm shot. And he asked me to give him one more day. And that was when I blew my elbow out in 93. And then you told me, 94, it was kind of the same thing. Hey, can you go back out there and ended up being the end of your year.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's sad, but when money's on the line and managers have to win to keep their job, it always filters down to the players, and it's up to the players. And I'm going to tell you, I say this in a funny way, but it's so true. The worst problem we had on those Oriole teams were we played with the Iron Man.
Yeah.
And damn it, when you see a dude go out there every stinking day and he's hurt, because we saw him busted up ankles, swole up knees, busted up ribs, hurt wrists, whatever, broken finger. Junior answered the bell. Obviously, he's the Iron Man. And when you're on a team like that, you feel bad about walking into the manager's office and say, look, my stuff's a little sore today. I'm going to need a day off. You feel bad about going in because you got this guy sitting over here that played in 2,600 and something consecutive games. And so that was not a good thing, although he set a good example for everybody, obviously. But I think it was a little bit embarrassing to feel like you needed to go on the IL now today's game's changed so much. It's like they just put guys on the IL to put them on the IL. Now, like, it's craziest stuff I've ever seen. The starting pitchers now are averaging 4 1/3, 4 2/3. Like, we were just getting warmed up at 4 1/3, but they're yanking them out of the ball games at 4 2/3, which is the reason why, like you said, you don't have 5-man bullpens anymore. You got to have 8 and 10-man bullpens because our starters are only giving us 4 1/3 every time out, and so the game's changed. We know more. Still, the one thing that I am complex about, I don't understand is, in our time, most of the time, if 9, 10 guys went down, like 8 out of 10 were shoulder issues. In today's world, if 10 guys go down, 8 out of 10 are elbow issues. It's like the elbow thing is like off the hook right now. Now, the silver lining of that is Tommy John is the one everybody comes back from, right? You tear the labrum and the cuff like I did, like I tore everything in there you could tear. Guys don't come back from that, and they're still not coming back from that today. But they are coming back from the Tommy John, because that seems to be the one. Like, you walk to a big league, and you walk to a college clubhouse today, I mean, there's a scar on just about on every other pitcher. Like, it's crazy to me that what's going on out there. So I can't put a finger on why, other than I think our youth league level one, or we're creating velocities that ligaments and tendons can't sustain at such a young age. And I also think there's a lot of kids, probably playing too much, and Gregg was a multi-sport athlete like I was. I got away from baseball after about 4 months of it, went and did something else. There's a lot of kids playing, almost year round now. And I think that could be a bad thing too.
I think you nailed it. And I think the other piece, it's the max velocities, on the mound, as well as the max velocity on the breaking ball. You know, it's not trying to locate a slider. It's, man, I'm trying to throw this slider 92 miles an hour, and elbows just are going, no. That was, that was why I blew out, was trying to max out my curveball and throw and turn. And I could throw it at 85 miles an hour. It blew me out. It wasn't,
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the game that they're in today, though. That's the game that they're telling the starters now, hey, I don't care if you get 80 pitches in, you give me max effort for 80 pitches. And when I talked to some of the Oriole, even college pitchers and even some of the Oriole pitchers that asked me, I was like, dude, we never, as a starter, we never pitched at max effort. I would cruise along at 90% max effort. Now, when I got a runner out at second base and it was 1 out or 2 out, then I had to turn the switch up, and it would be max effort to the next hitter until I got myself out of that jam. Then it was back to pitching at 90%. But I feel like somewhere along in baseball about 5 years ago, 2 ground outs and a pop-up became a bad inning for a pitcher. And I don't know where we got, I don't know why that happened, but it's almost like everything has to be swing and miss now. And I totally disagree with all of it. There's a place for a swing and miss. When you got the guy at third base, this less than 2 out, I need a strikeout. I got to punch a guy out. I get that. But it's all swing and miss from the beginning now. And 2 ground outs and a pop-up is not a bad inning. It's almost like we got to punch out 2, we got to walk 2, and we got to get a fly ball. And that's our inning today. That way our pitch count is 21 pitches after 1 inning, and that's why you're out of the ball game after 4, because you didn't get those 2 ground balls that pop out. So we're scared to pitch to contact now. I know why. I think more balls are flying out of the ballpark, obviously, and so guys don't want anybody putting the barrel on the ball. But if you make your pitches and you can pitch, there's a place. People always argue with me all the time. Greg Maddux would never do well in today's game. BS. BS to everybody that ever. It's like, he only threw 88 miles an hour. He would not do well in today's game. BS. He'd still be a Hall of Famer, because you know what? You would never hit it on the barrel, and he'd strike out guys left and right because guys are striking out now. So I don't want to hear people tell me that. Greg Maddux would do great. Tom Glavine would do great in today's game. There's no doubt. It's just our game has turned into a power. Here's the way I describe it. I'm going to outstuff you. So you worked on throwing your breaking ball down the way. Now the game has changed where just throw your breaking ball. But your breaking ball is so good, we're going to outstuff them today. So I'm not worried about you hitting spots. Don't worry about throw your fastball to the center part of the plate, because it's 97. It's got a high spin rate to it. You're going to outstuff guys. So we're getting to now. That's not worry about hitting spots. We're going to outstuff everybody. That's kind of where the game's gotten, especially when you go to the back end of bullpens now across big league baseball. It's like everybody's coming out with a wipeout slider and a upper 90s fastball that's got some spin rate to it. That's what you see come out of these bullpens now.
Yeah. No, I laugh at the Maddux analogy was perfect, because it's like Maddux would be carving people up.
He'd be embarrassing people.
He would be doing better than he did when he was pitching for the Braves in the 90s. He really would. I
don't disagree. I mean, I see, G-Man Choi. We see all these people. Hyunjin Ryu is the guy I'm thinking of with Toronto. He throws 88, 89 from the left side. He's had a great big league career. You go down, there's still guys that are doing very well with well below big league average fastballs, because they can pitch. They can use all their stuff. They can change speeds. They can pitch backwards. They can do that. That part is never going to leave our game. If you can do those things at the big league level, you're going to have success, but it's not where we're at. We want that big fastball and that wipeout slider or breaking ball. That's what we want now, and so it is what it is.
No, I think the only way it leaves the game right now is if scouts quit drafting these guys, where they're not even in the game. They don't have a chance to get into the system at all. Is the only way that, but I totally agree. Brandon, what do you got?
Well, and Zach Greinke comes to mind for a modern pitcher who can do all that.
There you go. He's right-hander too. That's right.
Right. So it kind of reminds me too of threes in basketball now, where everybody's just shooting the three. Nobody's grinding out in the paint and that sort of thing.
Right.
Here's what I want to do. A lot of meat left on the bone, but we're coming up on time here. Ben, can we get you on again here soon? Because you have so much left to talk about with us. We'd love to have you back on again real soon, but I hope we can get you at some point here in the next not too long.
Yeah, I'd love to be back with you guys. I got to run to Baltimore for finish out the season, and after that, I'm all your guys. That'd be great.
Well, okay.
That'd be great.
Before we let you guys go, I just want to know what's one thing from the era you played in that you wish was still happening in baseball today. And I'm going to leave it open-ended. It doesn't have to be anything specific in terms of on-field, off-field, whatever. Open-ended, because I want you guys to go in any direction you want.
I'll start, Ben, if you don't
Go ahead.
If you don't mind. No, I mean, for me, it was the best thing about the game was the clubhouse. We had no cell phones, I don't know when cell phones came in, 95, 96, whatever it was. But, it was hanging out in the clubhouse with Cal Ripken and Ben McDonald, Sutcliffe, and, sitting around for 2 hours talking about the baseball game and then going home, and then next day walk in and same guys, play some cards, hang out. Ben would mess with some people other than Albert. And, you go out and you play baseball with your buddies. And then it's, sit around after the game and talk about the game again and rinse and repeat. And there was no cell phones, nowhere to go, nothing was taking my mind off of what was going to be happening in that room.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's, and I get it because of COVID, but I mean, last year rather, guys are literally, the game is over and guys are out of the clubhouse 10 minutes later. Like, that's how fast guys are getting out of the clubhouse in today's world. I see it all the time. And, and when you're at home, and we didn't hang out in the clubhouse as much at home because we had our families at home. We wanted to get home to the kids or get home to your wife. So at home, it's a little bit different. But on the road, like Ole's saying, on the road, man, we had nowhere to go. And there was nothing to sit around and drink a few beers and talk about the ball game and talk about whatever, play cards. I mean, that was our life. That's what we did. And now it's just, it's a lot different now than what it was. And I'm not going to say that they don't have a close group, because I think a lot of the teams out there do have close group, but we were a really close group because we spent a lot of time together. We invested in each other and we pulled for each other along the way. And I think some of that's missing in today's game. It almost feels like in today's game, there's a lot of players that play for the name on the back of the jersey instead of the name on the front of the jersey. And I feel like that's kind of where we are in some aspects, or where we are in baseball. I still love the game of baseball. I still love big league baseball. It just feels like it's a little bit different than what it used to be. Some people would say it's different and it's better. I would disagree in some ways. I think the game's a little bit different to me, where I feel like there's more strikeouts and more home runs. I don't see many guys making an effort to move a guy from second over to third base with less than 2 out. You don't see that much anymore. So the game's changed in some ways, but it's still a hell of a game. It's still a hell of a game.
Nailed it.
Well, and I don't want to out Ole too much here. I don't know if I can even call you Ole. That's probably not fair. I haven't asked for permission. Okay. Did he invite you to the after parties at the Metrodome where he and the Ripken boys would play ball on the?
No, I never got to go. He was the one that was playing.
Okay, got it. Okay, I had to ask because Metrodome's where I saw my first big league game, and still has some fond memories for me. Obviously, you as a player, Gregg, you loved pitching there. I know. Tongue in cheek, but yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to see if you got invited or if it was a very exclusive.
No, that was Ben and the Ripken boys. We'll have to pull that story up.
That's a good story. Yeah, that's a good one, along with the Ripken calling my pitches story. So we'll have to pull those two up next time. Those are two entertaining stories.
I'd love to. Feel like we kept you long enough, brother.
Yes.
Really can't tell you how much we appreciate it.
Well, and
Anytime, guys. I enjoyed it.
I had a front page of notes and a back page of notes, and we got through about a quarter of a page. So thank you so much, Ben, for your time today. Obviously, Gregg, every week at Gregg Olson 30 on Twitter, at Real Ben McDonald, very entertaining on Twitter. Again, Ben, and of course, you too, Gregg. Thank you guys so much for your time today. We'll talk again soon. Hopefully, Ben in the near future, and obviously, Gregg next week.
Yep. Ben, thank you. Safe travels back to Baltimore.
Thank you, guys.
All right,
I appreciate it. Good talking to you.
You've been listening to That 90s Baseball Pod, powered by Access Twins. We'll catch you next week.